chief pastor to the clergy of this diocese. What would that pastoral support look like, and how would you encourage the clergy to come to you?
I can't speak sitting down. You're going to learn that about me. The chief pastor role for the bishop is an incredibly important role. And it's not something that happens automatically. It's something that emerges with time and with trust. In the Diocese of Idaho, the bishop and I share the pastoral duties with the clergy and the lay leadership of the diocese. And the way that we do that, I think, is really important, because sometimes I can get to a place faster than he can. Or sometimes I can send someone. Or sometimes he may have a better approach than I do with a person, or I may have a better approach than he does with a person. One of the realities of that is that I don't believe, as chief pastor of a diocese, that it all rests with me. In a shared episcopate, it means that many times we are pastoring to each other, and we need to be able to take care of each other. But that, of course, I want to make sure I can get there. In the Diocese of Idaho, it's not always easy. Here it would be a lot easier, because in Idaho it's 10 hours from one point to the other point, and that's if there's good weather and there's no road closures and I can drive the speed limit. But what I want to say about that is it's not like automatically I can walk in the door of a place and suddenly I'm the chief pastor and everybody's going to come to me and trust me, right? That doesn't happen with any of us. Trust is earned over time. But one of the things that I can say is that I have never had a situation where people said they didn't feel they could come to me. Most people feel that I'm accessible to them, that I am easy to reach, that I answer my texts and my phone calls, that I can dispatch people when needed if I can't get there first, or get there later if I need to. There's another point to the pastoral question, and that has to do with the tough conversations or the courageous conversations. I can't have a conversation with anyone that is difficult if there's not trust between us. We have to be able to build up that trust so that way those conversations that may be difficult, where I may have someone who's acting out or who's feeling isolated or something is going on, to be able to talk about that candidly and honestly and lovingly is really important. Sometimes I would have to issue a pastoral directive if someone is just way too isolated and doesn't want to respond, and this is the only way that I can get them toward a path to health. So I would say that it's based on trust, first of all, and then on connection, and then availability, and then we continue that cycle knowing that we're all in this together, in this relationship.
Oh, I thought you had the card.
I'll take a card.
What do you think of the current strategic plan for the diocese? How would you see yourself leading the collaborative effort to continue to renew this plan, and do you have a vision for where God might be calling ECR next?
It's a threefold question, so I want to make sure I hit all the points. I love your current strategic plan, and what I really love most about it is the fact that it is a renewable. This is a dynamic plan. It is not a static plan. You guys know how to do a strategic plan. I mean, you really do. And when I asked about how it was done, I was told, well, it was done in a group. It was collaborative. We discerned over time. We talked about it, and we came to it together. And then 3 years later, we did the same thing all over again. Well, that's good. That's good process. And that's important because we would continue to evolve strategic plans. When it comes to working with strategic plans, there were two things that I noticed in particular about yours. There was a lot in there, but there were two things. One that I noticed was that the Communications Commission was very important to you. I think that's one of the big challenges that we have in the Episcopal Church. And it's not just a challenge that is technical. It's a challenge that has to do with relationality. So that's something I'm going to talk about later, but I wanted to point that out because I thought that was really important in your strategic plan. The second thing that I noticed that just inspired me was the curator for New and Emerging Ministries, Kelsey. When I saw that in your strategic plan, it just hit because I thought, here's the church that I'm talking about. The church that is innovative, that seeks opportunity, that is healthy enough to create a position like this and move forward with it. Even if you don't know exactly what it's going to look like, that is so cool. That is so amazing that you're willing to take that risk and more than take the risk, but embrace it and say that, yes, this is what we want to do. In terms of vision, this is really important. It is not my vision to impose a vision. This is a shared episcopate. That's the way I understand it. And how we evolve vision together over time is about how we prayerfully engage the process, how we listen to what God is calling us to do, how we are that pilgrim church that is innovative and seeking opportunity. That's how we do it. I am not the kind of person who tends to, my kids would say otherwise, but I'm really not the kind of person who stands up and tells people what to do. It's just not who I am. And it's not a style that I enjoy. It's not a style of leadership that I enjoy. So what I look forward to is that ongoing evaluation of vision, the reassessment of it, and finding the new vision as the church continues to emerge in our world.
Thank you. Jail ministry and reentry into society is an important ministry, not only in ACR, but also in the Episcopal Church. What does All Are Welcome mean to you in regard to the incarcerated and those in reentry from jail or prison? Does your answer change if they are a sexual offender or if their crime was violent? Please explain.
Right across the border from the Diocese of Idaho, in the Diocese of Eastern Oregon, is the Snake River Correctional Institution. This is a place for violent offenders. It is a place for sex offenders. The men who go in there sometimes are in there for life, but no matter what, they're in there for a very long time. The Diocese of Eastern Oregon wasn't able to support that ministry for a while, so the Diocese of Idaho took it over. And we had a lay couple who were very invested and are still invested in this particular ministry. Because I am canon to the ordinary, what this meant was that I needed to be able to support them in their ministry emotionally and financially and programmatically. And more than that I needed to make sure I maintained my clearance so that I could go to the Snake River Correctional Institution 2, 3, 4 times a year to celebrate Eucharist, to preach, to teach, to instruct, to listen. During that time, during doing this, has been one of the great joys that I have had, because this is a community called Grace Chapel, and it sits in the prison, and it has about 25 to 35 people, men, there at any one time. And it is the most organized group I have ever seen in a church. Yeah. And they have a great choir. I have gotten to know them as people and understood that some of the circumstances of their life are horrific. But our job is to breathe into that hope and possibility. And we say, the Episcopal Church welcomes you. Then I get the phone call that says, this person is being released to a town not too far away in Eastern Oregon. And I call the rector and I say, this person is being released to your town. And the answer is, we don't know what to do with that. We don't know what to do with that. You know, I think the Episcopal Church is still working on what to do with that. But it is true that we have boundaries in place. We have limitations that can be imposed on people who are violent offenders or sex offenders. There's a place for them in the pew. We just need to be watchful and wise about where the ministry can occur and how the community can engage with this person. If we say the Episcopal Church welcomes you, and then it doesn't welcome them, they end up right back inside the prison walls, where maybe there is an Episcopal Church that welcomes them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What would you do to increase the understanding of the call to ordination, and this is both priestly and diaconal, and to help local congregations discern vocations among them? Should there be an age limit in place regarding ordination to the priesthood or to the vocational diaconate?
You know, I think dioceses throughout the country and the world really struggle with the question of call and discernment to ordained ministry. I mean, theoretically, we know that this is a call that comes out of our understanding of baptismal ministry. And that baptismal ministry is something we're all called to by virtue of being baptized and being children of God. Yet I find that in many cases there is a confusion between being a really, really great lay leader and a deacon or a priest. It is true that sometimes, in some situations, in small communities in the middle of nowhere, it is true that sometimes there will be a priest who will go through process and be ordained because that community really needs somebody to do that. That is true. Ideally, though, the call ordination process, the call process that needs to happen is based upon gifts. And it's based upon discernment, and it's based upon prayer, and it takes time. And our commission on ministries need to be able to ask good questions. In this diocese, it is my understanding that you have deanery commissions on ministry. I really like that. And it's an idea I want to steal. The reason I like that idea is because it doesn't put the burden on the parish to have to ask questions that may be really hard of someone that they love. Because that's a hard thing for us to do. Instead, with the deanery-wide approach, you get a better sense of that. Now, commissions on ministry are charged to look at the ministry of all the baptized, which is lay or ordained. It is also true that our understanding of the call to ordained ministry between deacon and priest is often a path that we struggle with in the church. The diaconate, for some reason, seems an unclear calling to many people, an unclear understanding. Some people, in fact, believe that the diaconate is subordinate to the priesthood, when in fact it's actually a parallel calling. And the diaconate has its own very unique calling, and we need to be able to ask the right questions about that. I only have this amount of time. Should there be an age limit? I'm not sure where this question is coming from. What I would say to you about this is I don't think that an 18-year-old should be ordained to the priesthood. I have adult children. I'm just saying. So I'm looking forward to learning more about what that question is about.
Thank you. What are your plans for effectively communicating with the diocese should you be elected? How will we come to know you? What mechanisms would you use for allowing your voice to be heard around the diocese?
Well, the fact that your strategic plan talks about communication means that this is an important topic, but it's an important topic all over the church. I'm going to talk about how you come to know me. We're Westerners, okay? We're relational people. We like face-to-face conversation. We like to get to know each other. We like to hear our stories and share our stories. And it is through that understanding and that way of being together that, in fact, we can then look at more formal modes of communication. I have found that it is not that difficult when I first arrive in a diocese to get in my car, and it's easier here, to drive around, to go to parishes, to meet with clergy leaders, lay leaders, to find out what kind of food you like, and to really enjoy that conversation that we have. Once we have that conversation, that face-to-face, and we realize that we're all in this together, to me what that means is that when there is a communication that comes from the diocese by snail mail, I don't know who uses that anymore, but some people do. If it comes by snail mail, that it doesn't end up in the circular file just because it came from the diocese, right? Or if an email comes in, that it doesn't suddenly disappear into the spam folder just because it came from the diocese. So I think that is really important. Secondly, in terms of formal modes of communication, it all depends on what generation you are. Some people really do need snail mail. Some people are Facebook people. Some people are email people. Some people are blog people. Some people are on Instagram or Snapchat, or you take your pick. We're all communicating in different ways, and the church, with all of the generations that we have in one institution, is amazing in terms of communication. So yes, it's a challenge, no matter what, and it's going to continue to be a challenge. I mean, look at where you're situated here, right? Communication is a thing, right? You're leading the world on that. How would I have my voice be heard around the diocese? First, person to person. Secondly, we need to look at modes of communication that are more familiar with people, most familiar. E-news is a great way to go. And sometimes a blog or a pastoral letter can be very helpful if it needs to be read to congregations. But I think that my main thing is we need to start by making sure that we all know each other and that we're relating so that the formal modes of communication aren't strained.
Thank you very much. And the last of our planned questions. How would you engage, inspire, and lead the laity in ECR towards living more fully into the Baptismal Covenant?
I want to tell you a story. I had been in the Diocese of Idaho for a little more than 2 seconds. And Chad appeared with the keys. And he put them on the table in front of me and he said, "We're done." Chad was the senior warden, as it turned out, of a parish in a small town of 982 people. And his parish had 6 people. And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" "Well, there's nobody comes, we can't do anything." It's really not good news. Well, I did not accept the keys. I handed those back to him. But then I hopped in my car and I went over to see what he was talking about, where he's located in this town in the high desert where there's nobody around except coyotes. And as I sat down with the 6 lay leaders in that parish, and I said, "What do you guys do here?" "Well, they run the emergency food bank for the town." They have Sunday services where they have morning prayer and they have preaching. On Sunday afternoons, they go to the nursing home. During the week, they have a Bible study that is ecumenical, except the Presbyterians don't like it for some reason, although I don't know what that is. They have a craft class with the Mormon women. They run a clothes closet with the Baptists. They do Holy Week services with the Baptists. And the community is always looking around and saying, what are those Episcopals doing? 6 people. So what I said is, look, you're not supposed to look like the cathedral. You're not supposed to look like the big church in Idaho Falls. You're supposed to look like you, doing what you're doing in the community you're doing it in, answering God's call. So at Deanery Days, the following year, the parishes all talk about what they're doing. And Chad stood up, and his scroll must have been this long. And he ran down, I said, Chad, what are you guys doing at Epiphany? And he ran down the list, and he named all of that off. And then I said, Chad, how many people are in your parish? 13. They had more than doubled. See, that story is an inspiration, because the thing about it was what they needed was cheerleading. They needed encouragement. They needed somebody saying, you are fully living into your baptismal covenant and more. What you're doing is amazing, serving your community. I know you get tired once in a while, but look at this. And the whole deanery thinks they are like the poster child. So encouraging lay ministry, that's the key, because people are doing amazing stuff. Thank you.